Roxana. Now to the aftermath of that train derailment in Ohio, where local residents are very reluctant to accept official advice that it's safe to return home.
I wonder why. I've seen so many people be like, dude, it's not that big of a deal, including even like Alan Fisher, who I love. I think he does a great job because it's like about trains and he knows too much about trains, I think. People being like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Yes. Because of derailments being such, as I've talked about, such a normal part. No, he didn't say it, but he liked the tweet about it. I saw, I think. Anyway, I don't think he personally thinks it's not that big of a deal. But I think that if you cover trains all the time, you know that derailments happen. Thousands of derailments happen a year. Some of those derailments are not that big of a deal. It's just like a train literally getting off the a train slightly getting off track, you know what I mean? Not like a major one. Okay, for those of you who don't know. And there are more devastating ones that even occur and have gone unnoticed in the past. Overall, though, it's still fucking awful. It is a devastating environmental catastrophe. It's just that once you hit the TikTok button on any kind of story, the story itself turns into something even much larger, where people are talking about how like this is, Chernobyl style. People are fucking dying. No, what's going to end up happening is more monotonous, more boring, more banal. However, in a weird way, more devastating. You will see cancer clusters 10 years down the line. You know what I mean? That's it. That's what you're going to see. The truth is, unfortunately, always significantly more boring. I'm begging leftists to stop making a fool of yourself by showing how much you don't understand trains, especially freight, when talking about NS derailment. I understand you didn't pay attention to the news and are now freaking out about a train go kaboom 5 days later, but please don't talk about train air brakes unless you do a mild amount of research. Also, yes, I'm making an explainer video about it within the week. Yeah, I knew. I as soon as I saw this tweet, I knew he was gonna pop off on this. Train nerds mad we're calling their 150-year-old tech shitty. Anyway. More cancer for big cancer to scam people into funding big cancer CEOs. Okay. Would you consider yourself a train head? No. I merely am a train observer and an appreciator. I would never call myself a train head because there is so much more to know about trains that I do not know. I would never say that. Anyway, so what I was saying is this is a devastating situation. It's a devastating situation just like, the average. It's a devastating situation that's more boring than the way people are now sensationalizing it. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. It's still fucked up. And I think that the more interesting component of this is that how this is like, how the lack of reaction, the lack of media coverage overall are surrounding it, and the lack of interest and the way that the company originally fucking behaved is consistent with how capitalism works. You know what I mean? I think that is the more interesting story than like the chemicals are going to start melting people's brains in East Palestine or whatever the fuck people are saying. Because like I said, the unfortunate reality is, and I've said this literally since day one, this is a big deal. It's a big story. But more so because of the ineptitude built into the system, more so because of like all the lobbying efforts to ensure that there's not enough safety mechanisms inside of the not enough safety checks because they're cutting corners. It's a story about union busting. It's a story about like not listening to the workers. It's a story about workers knowing more about the fucking process, the logistics, than like the way executives treat it. Okay? This is just another story about another town being absolutely fucking destroyed by profit-seeking demons and the government not doing anything about it. Okay?
It has been 12 days since the accident in East Palestine, since this sent this toxic plume of smoke into the air. Now people are complaining about health issues, and there are urgent questions about how their concerns.
The positive, though, from this, the positive thing, the one silver lining in this is that people are way more fucking focused on like chemical spills and shit that are happening in their neighborhoods now. And because it happens a lot, because it happens so fucking frequently, perhaps the one good thing that could come out of this is like maybe some more media coverage on this kind of thing and maybe a bill. Who knows?
Were handled. Lilia Luciano has the story.
I would be alert and concerned, but I think I would probably be back in my house.
That was Ohio Governor Mike DeWine's answer when he was asked whether he would move back home if he lived in East Palestine, Ohio, though he did offer caveats.
I think that
There's an average, there was 1,000 train derailments last year. Yes, but not all train derailments are like this, for the record, okay? They're not like that. Not every train derailment is like, it leads with, ends up with a chemical spill and like a controlled demolition. Some of those train derailments are literally just a train slightly getting off track. Like that's not all of them are created equal. The issue, however, is that a lot of them do end up releasing contaminants into the environment. But I think probably Alan Fisher and the like getting frustrated about this story and the coverage on the story is understandable. The reason why it's understandable is because train derailments happen. Toxic chemicals sometimes get spilled, but they are a necessary, it is, trains and train tracks in general are absolutely necessary to people's survival, to humanity's survival. And it is still a more cost-effective and more environmentally friendly way of doing logistics and transportation than anything else. So I think that Alan probably personally is afraid that people are just going to be anti-train now. Okay?
I would be drinking the bottled water.
There have been numerous reports in recent days of respiratory issues, burning eyes, and dead wildlife, including at least 3,500 confirmed dead.
Are really people saying we shouldn't have trains anymore over this? No, but I understand why people would deflect away from the main point of contention with train companies and like basically think that this is just, you know, this is a problem that happens with trains in general.
Fish.
If you're new to the fucking story, if you're like oblivious to this kind of thing happening when it happens like 1,000 times a year, okay, maybe not to this degree, but like some version of this happens more than 1,000 times a year, you're gonna start being like, oh, this is fucked up. What the fuck? We gotta fix this. This shit sucks.
Killed by contamination.
We don't have any evidence of non-aquatic species suffering from the derailment.
5 of the train cars were carrying vinyl chloride, a highly combustible chemical linked to a higher risk of some kinds of cancers. Crews conducted a controlled release of the carcinogen to reduce the risk of an explosion.
When you have combustion or burning, you create all sorts of different byproducts. It's important to understand to cast a wide net when you're testing, because you want to narrow out and rule out chemicals that could pose an acute health risk or linger around.
The governor and other officials lifted the town's evacuation order a week ago after health officials said air quality was back to acceptable levels and the city's main water supply, they said, was safe. 2 days after the evacuation order was lifted, the EPA said 3 additional hazardous chemicals were found on the derailed train cars.
This train apparently was not considered a high hazardous material train.
Yesterday, Governor DeWine revealed that since only 20 of the 150 cars contained hazardous materials, the company, citing federal law, was not required to notify the state of Ohio that the train had toxic chemicals on board.
Frankly, if this is true, and I'm told it's true, this is absurd.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Lilia Luciano.
That's crazy, man. You should look to your party about how they feel about fucking... You should ask other members in your party how they feel about deregulation.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Now, I don't know if they have to take additional precautions due to traveling with hazardous waste.